I'm a stubborn man. Always have been. All right.
Hi Nat, I'm back at the computer, but I need to go down again to get my lunch. So
Okay.
feel free to talk to the chat or whatever. I won't be here for a minute or two, and then I'll probably be eating my lunch. Hold on.
Yeah. Okay. Hello. I'm I'm just okay. This might trigger here in a second. Sorry. I'm here like trying to manage children. I'm a dad. My technology just breaks anytime I try to use it. I think and I'm pretty stubborn, so I basically assume that that's the devil trying to stop me from saying the one thing I think that people should know. And I think Catholics, it was interesting to hear, here, all right, children, take this. It was interesting to hear, I think Robert, Mr. Robert there. Yeah, I got to turn it up. Okay, I'm working on it. Just relax. Oh, it's because this. Sorry. We found some documentaries of old Irish traditional crafts. So children. And they crowd me. I'm on the phone. They just want to see what I'm doing. And of course, I'm talking about gross pagan stuff. So. Okay, let this work. Okay. So anyway, so basically, and it was unfortunate because I heard a lot of stuff there about church history. Usury is my main topic. I'll tell you about church history that Catholicism's always been the religion of the poor. It always has been, and whenever it failed to be the religion of the poor, that's basically where Islam came from. Islam is also the religion of the poor, and there's been other instances of that, like Arianism and whatnot. But let me basically tell you about church history. So to kind of counteract some of the things you heard, scholars have all kinds of crazy ideas now, and they predicate it by assuming that miracles don't happen. But if you read the historical record, like I do almost every day, you'll find countless recordings of miracles. I mean, people, especially after Christ came, especially people raised from the dead, blind having their sight again. St. Martin's famous for raising people from the dead. But in the time, and this was just regular. I mean, even up till today, there's still a lot of miracles that are regular. It's less after about 1960. It's been less, but there's still miracles. It's constant. And there was a certain school in historians that came about in the 1800s where they just said miracles are not possible because of the scientific method. You can't repeat them, and they just were skeptical prima facie, and that was the assumption they went in. So then they ended up, and this especially influenced the Germany and England, because of Protestant theology, basically, because it helped to explain at first it helped to explain the Protestant cause, because the Protestant cause, being that the true church was not the Catholic Church, was the only one there was for 1,500 years. So they started eliminating miracles, so they wouldn't read any history. They would just say it's not true if it involved miracles. So a lot of our understanding of history now and all the innovations and whatnot come from that assumption in the 1800s that has been so strong up till today. So in church history, you had heresies from the very beginning. You had Simon Magus, who's typically understood as the father of Gnosticism. And if you read the book of Acts, which is a history book, you will read about Simon Magus. He offered to pay the apostles money to receive the Holy Ghost. He did end up getting baptized, and despite that, he fell off and he became a magician. And they started telling, and you can read about this in St. Irenaeus. He started telling everybody, I believe, that he was the Holy Ghost or something of that nature. And he had a concubine that he carried around that he also gave divine properties to, and he formed a whole sect of Christians and led them astray. He went to Rome and he flew because of the power of the demons. So miracles are recorded not just from God's intercession, but also from demonic intercession and witchcraft, which has just been a regular understanding up until basically skeptical historians up till 1800. But still, I mean, you can hear about people practicing sangria, doing shape shifting and stuff like that. This is a very active thing in history still today. So Timagus was flying in order to impress the emperor, and Peter and Paul at that time were in prison, and they prayed, and the demons lost their power, dropped Timagus, and he died. I believe he broke his leg and had a leg infection. He might just died. And because of that, it prompted the Roman emperor that was watching him to start a persecution of Christians. So, point being that when you hear about these innovations in church history, that all the true Christians were the Gnostics, or Christianity was this reinterpretation of paganism or something like that, you have to understand that there has been different factions and heretical factions from the beginning. The question is, who is really Christ and who is Christ's people that he put in charge? And the answer that we give is it's the apostles. And the apostles and the true church was generally the church of the poor. It was not the church of the rich. And so Arianism, for instance, was heavily supported by the pagan aristocrats that were in charge of Rome, with the kind of the weakening of the actual Roman power. Barbarians had become emperor, and then they put their generals in charge. And so people that were not ethnically Roman or even ethnically Italian ended up running the empire. And that's actually the origins of the Christian kingdoms, is the Germanic tribes came down and they converted. So these Arians were by and large the rich and the powerful, and Catholicism supported the poor. There's this, it's in the Bible, just, everyone knew that Christ was the God of the poor. He loves the poor. You can be a very sinful man, and if you're poor, Christ still associates you with him. And that's the true religion. He loves the poor. He came and he was a poor man. He took care of the poor. Still takes care of the poor today, as eugenics and whatnot tries to kill them out. Well, Arianism is not that different. It's just you had these rich pagans, and they were kind of taking the popular thing of Christianity that was gaining so much traction, and paganism was ridiculous and wasn't holding on to traction anymore. Nobody was impressed by it, the miracles. God was just more powerful than these demons. And so then they converted, and then they became Arian so that they could still separate themselves from the normal poor, the Catholic poor that were being lifted up in power by doing martyrdoms and glory this way, instead of like leading armies and winning battles, which you can win glory as a Christian that way too, just depending on your time. You just have to submit to God's will if he wants you to do that for a particular reason, like Charlemagne, for instance, do that. So that's where Arianism comes from. Islam comes from a similar thing, but it's different. So the Christian leaders, the Catholic leaders in the East, in Greece and whatnot, practiced a lot of usury, and through the processes of usury, enslaved their own people, just like the pagan Romans did under Julius Caesar. And Julius Caesar was opposed to it, which is why he's sometimes understood. A lot of Shakespearean stuff seems to be very pro Julius Caesar, because Shakespeare saw similar things happening in England. But that's where Islam came. Islam united the poor people on the outskirts and brought them in. They said, this is ridiculous. We need land. We need patrimony for our sons. We need wives. We need our daughters should be given in marriage, not given over to prostitution, fornication. So we should have modesty. And then that's why the Eastern Empire collapsed. That's why God gave over a lot of Christian lands to Muslims, is because of that moral issue that he had with the church, particularly the political leaders in the church who are practicing this way. So that's true church history. And then people go back and they kind of reinterpret things with these errors, and they come up with all kinds of other ideas. But the main thing about usury, I'm going to be arguing about eugenics, is usury does support the popular and the rich. Those are the ones, people that would not survive in a while. Like I kind of caught a little bit of what Robert was saying. But the difference is it's not just your strong men that are supported by the normal operations of the economy. If the economy doesn't have this parasite usury on it, then it supports everybody. The point of economy is to manage the household. So family, community, natural affections support the baby, support the poor, support the weak, support mothers, the elderly, pregnant mothers, all these people that need support and can't just survive in the woods on their own. They are taken care of by natural community. Usury breaks down community. I mean, just you can see this just by looking around. Look at your town, wherever you live, and ask yourself, where are the men all day long? Well, they're at work. Why are they at work? Because they need to pay the bills. Why do they need to pay the bills? Because of usury. Did a man have to come up with paper money every month in order to keep a roof over his head? No. He generally inherited his house from his father. Him and his father would build a house together, get married. That's where his house came from, or his wife's father. That's why the Bible is so important about taking care of the stranger, because the stranger doesn't have that natural benefit that people have. But now people think houses come from usury. Why? Because the usurer has been manipulating and stealing from people for so long that all of our community, you have to pay somebody to learn how to breastfeed your children. You have to pay somebody in order to get medical attention. Well, in the Catholic world, there would be doctors that would do it for free because they love God. And most of the things that you would manage is not paper money or currency. Paper money is ridiculous. But currency and gold, these things that hold value over time. The whole point of currency is to hold value over time so that you can also pass to your children that inheritance, also have that as your patrimony. As a small addition, main patrimony is land and and there's tons of land. Just look at a map. There's still tons of land, and that's basically some of the effects of usury. And it has everything to do with America. It started in England, but America, because you have a land of people leaving their fathers and kind of just like going out into the woods and trying to make it on their own and abandoning their fathers, then America becomes the most exploitable country for the sake of usury. That's the history of America. The Irish were sent here as slaves because of religion and because of eugenics. Charles Darwin basically saying that the blacks and the Irish are closer to monkeys than the English are, what Charles Darwin said. And it justified the English enslaving and mistreating blacks and Irish, separating Irish families, and then Manifest Destiny in America. The Puritans came here basically thinking that the Indians were savages that just needed to be pushed out, like the Book of Judges, similar to what you see right now happening in Palestine. But the Catholics came here saying, we got to save these people, we got to protect them. They intermarried with them right away. It's what Mexicans are, it's intermarriage with the Spaniards and the natives. And that was the right choice. But what's really interesting is the amount that God has prospered the descendants of the English, starting with the Spanish Armada, in order to make sure that the British Empire and then the American Empire runs the world through usury. And I can kind of understand it in modern history because, like, for instance, when America gained Spanish lands, California, Texas, and whatnot, well, it's because the Mexicans had some moral error, especially like communism and atheism, basically. And they were stealing church lands. And in America, the church was protected from at least that persecution. So Our Lady gave over Mexican lands to America. But I don't understand. One of the most interesting things in history to me is the Spanish Armada and being sunk by Queen Elizabeth the heretic. I don't understand why that happened, and I'm very curious to find that out. So why would God allow that to happen? Besides the fact that He wanted history to go the way it has for different reasons, but it must have been some kind of moral error that He was punishing. It's the only thing I can think of. So I think I have to go because my children just are not staying put, and I have to feed them.
Thank you for coming, Nathan. Next time I'm going to ask you how you propose to ban usury without Sharia.
Oh yeah, that's the most interesting question, and I'm working on it. But thank you, Ms. Khaw. I'm sorry for all the technical errors and all that kind of stuff. I would have liked to engage with Robert more because I don't get to talk to pagans enough.
Well, we'll come back again roughly the sort of time. About what 12:30 British summer time.
Next week?
Yeah. I talked to Khalid around at 11:30.
Well, maybe just send me a message if it's on your mind and remind me, because I get up at like 6 a.m. at the latest. Usually I'm up at 4:30, and it's just a whirlwind as soon as the children come. So, but I'm doing more YouTube and stuff because we're kind of going into a new phase in my family, and it helps to have an outlet.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Well, you pray for me, Miss Khaw. You're doing a good job.
Of course I will.
I mean, to briefly answer your question, people haven't been interested in a while, but I think the main way you destroy usury is just through business principles. I think this is one of three things though. But I think that the assumption that you should do everything from the top down is a very modern assumption. And generally, especially in America, it's different in different countries, but in America, there is so much freedom economically that you could take advantage of that in order to create a God-centered economy if you're careful. So I think that's the main, not to offend the American overlords, basically. I think that's the main approach, and that's what I'm doing all the time. I just launched a business. Now I'm starting a new business, and I'm always trying to support everybody I can through the business operation I do, because we can work cooperatively. The other two things, the other two solutions that are more top-down is basically it depends on whether or not you can figure out who the usurer is. The usurers are very well hidden because nobody would like them if they knew who they were, and so they put out all these.
Federal Reserve and all the banks, right?
Well, those aren't people. Those aren't people. I suspect that the usurer is dead. I suspect that he did what he was doing, and this is to say, like a small group of people. I suspect they did it hundreds of years ago, and it's just operating on its own principles. Because everyone kind of knows that to do usury, you steal from the future generations. So I actually think that we are all enslaved to dead men, and basically, but if we're not, and if there is somebody who's actually benefiting from usury at this point, and nobody really benefits, but it's somebody who's actively keeping this thing going. If we know who they are, we convert them to Jesus Christ. We talk to them about what's going to happen at their judgment, and that should fix things because they'll have enough power.
I don't think Jesus said anything about the money lenders, did he really? He overturned their tables.
Oh, he did. But... No, he did. He warned them. He overturned their tables. He warned them, and then in AD 70, all of Jerusalem was burnt down. And then he conquered Rome with a fisherman shortly afterwards. So the strongest empire, the largest, the center of that empire, he sent. They say illiterate, but he must not have been illiterate unless the Holy Ghost taught him how to write. But they sent an uneducated fisherman. That's what Jesus Christ did. He sent uneducated fishermen to poor fishermen from the backwater to the center of the Roman Empire, and he conquered it. That's how Jesus Christ fixed this problem, and he could do it again.
I don't remember this historical account, so I guess.
Well, I don't have time to get into it, but most people. The point is, Jesus Christ conquered Rome a long time ago. That's why there is a Catholic Church. But anyways, I will say the third solution is to call a jubilee, and I've kind of been researching that, and the more I think about it, the more I think that basically you would have to have the Pope do it, and it would involve every leader that you could get involved in, including of the large corporations and whatnot, to work with the Pope and call a jubilee and forgive all debts. And I think that the biggest thing about people is they think that like if this thing breaks down, everyone dies and that kind of thing. Well, what you could do is I'm still researching this, but you would do something similar to what Joseph did in the Bible, and you would prepare for a number of years. You would say, this is when the Jubilee is going to happen. Everyone prepare, because they throw away. I mean, the usurer right now throws away millions and millions of pounds of food every year. He pays the farmer to do that. So what you do is you just say, the Jubilee's coming. Everyone store up your food. Stop throwing it away. Store it up. And we're going to weather the storm because we need to. We need to do this for God, and because if we don't do this, it's going to be a lot more violent and a lot more deadly if we just pretend like this is going to happen. So the Pope would arrange it with all the secular leaders that he could get involved. It's kind of like they say Russia needs to be consecrated with the Pope and all the bishops in unity. Well, the Pope and all the secular leaders, as much as he can, he needs to command them, because the Pope is the king of the whole world. He's the vicar of Jesus Christ, the vicar of God. He's the king of the whole world. He needs to command all the secular leaders to do this, to work with him on doing this. And yeah, you could do it diplomatically. You don't have to like lord over them like the Gentiles do, but he is the king. He has the authority to do that. And have a jubilee, And I'm sure that general concept, you would have a lot of people that could come in that are way more knowledgeable than me, talk about the details in all the different countries of what exactly that would look like and how to prepare for it the best. But that's the basic idea. But I'm taking care of what I could take care of, which is my family, my community, and the people I could talk to on the internet, and just supporting everything they could do, because the Quran is much, much better than the user's law code, which is contrary. I got to go, though. My children are staging a rebellion. God bless you. Pray for me, please.
I will.
Good job.
And talk
My
to you
daughter's
before too long.
Yeah, just send me a message. Send me a message, and I'll try to come in less chaotic. Pray for me. God bless you.
All right. Bye.
The trust and integrity are important, which is why I prefer to talk to you individually, and I'm happy to do that if you have the time to do that. But nobody has time and nobody has money because of usury, which is why I'm fighting usury with all my heart, with everybody I can find. And if you want to support me with your time, if you have any extra, please contact me individually. If you have to send me money to support me, that's fine. We'll find the least usurious way as possible, and you'll see a link. There are 3 ways that we can do this, or there are 3 ways that I'm working on right now. There's one bottom-up approach. I'm talking quickly for the people who don't have time. And that involves creating insular economies, which is what you will find out when you contact me individually with your extra time. That's the most important. I'm doing that locally, and I'm doing that electronically, which is where you come in. The other 2 are top-down. So that you can find a user, you can cause him to repent, you can tell him about Jesus Christ, and then he should fix everything. And so we won't suffer as much. Or you can pass Jubilee laws, which you don't need to find the user or do that. It makes usury illegal. It benefits everybody who is struggling, and it will punish users or anybody who commits usury. So, which is not the people you think. Nobody knows who they are. So don't worry about you being affected by that. But I'm doing the first one, I'm researching the other 2, and I'm glad to hear your thoughts.
Edited by lil-lathoS.